On the podcast, we talk a lot about AI companies getting these colossal rounds of funding or spending a huge amount of money on compute or something else. Today on the podcast, we want to talk about a $4 billion pledge that Microsoft has actually made to AI education. This is kind of cool. Obviously, Connor is in education. I myself also have taught at university in my past. So both of us are like pretty interested in this area and also very excited about this. $4 billion is a colossal amount of money. This was reported by the New York Times. So we'll be breaking down that on the show today. But before we do, I just wanted to mention if you've ever wanted to help yourself or your organization understand what is going on in AI better, understand frameworks for actually using tools and making changes, I would highly recommend you check out Connor's AI Mindset course. I think it is literally hands down the best AI course out there if you want to actually change your some of your mental frameworks around using AI tools and actually get the most out of it. So I think the ROI on this course is like 100x. It's insane. We've heard from so many amazing people and organizations. So beyond yourself, if you're like, man, some of these people in my organization could really benefit from this, I would highly recommend checking out the course and sharing it within your organization. So check it out, link in the description. But anyways, Connor, tell us about this $4 billion Microsoft pledge. What was your reaction when you saw that headline initially?
I mean, look, I'm a huge fan of AI in education. Obviously, like as you're sort of talking about, this is a lot of what I do, obviously. But like, I mean, I think it's awesome. I think that there's no downside to it. I mean, so the issue, and this is just this month, right? July 2025, and this is where Microsoft announced this big $4 billion investment. And the $4 billion is over 5 years, but still, and it's to educate and advance AI. It's essentially education, which we sort of like want to kind of dive into like what that looks like. But it's supposed to be training, like 20 million people in AI skills, right? And providing tech. So part of that 4 billion is also just in resources as well, which we kind of know what that looks like. The timing is also interesting. They announced that just a few days after they talked about like this $23 million teacher training effort,
Mm-hmm.
and that was kind of by everybody, right? That was like OpenAI, it was Microsoft, it was Anthropic, and they combined on this, right? This is like a $23 million thing. It was, I think it was like it's like the National Center. I don't have it in front of me. It's like the National Center for AI Instruction or something like that, right? So anyway, and all of this is part of even a broader thing, which is coming through this White House AI education pledge. And that's everybody, right? That's Google, Microsoft, Meta, Adobe, Apple, everybody that ends this like AI education pledge. And this is part of this bigger federal push, right, under the current administration, and it commits companies to providing funding, curriculum, training, all this sort of stuff. So, I mean, Jade, listen, to be honest, when I see this, the thing that gets me most excited about, and maybe just let me just sort of like give a kind of little behind the scenes kind of thing on how I work at NYU Stern, for example, right? Because I work with a lot of organizations, but I also obviously am at Stern, and I've been at NYU Stern, the business school, for about a dozen years now. And Jaden, just sort of like a little bit of behind the scenes. When I was sort of like first starting this, working with students, administration, faculty, things like that, I wasn't sure who should learn it, how we should teach it, anything like that, because we're all so new to this. And so I have this whole framework that we teach to big companies and all that kind of stuff. And that's the framework that I was using. The thing is, I am now kind of 2 years into this. I'm much more bullish on teaching teachers than teaching students. I think students will figure this out. Their incentives are
Mm-hmm.
really aligned with figuring
Yeah.
out AI.
Yes,
The
true.
teachers is the much harder thing, right? Because they've been teaching the same way for many, many years. They've been very successful, et cetera. And I think that this training needs to go into teaching teachers because it's totally disrupting education. I know a lot of you out there really care about this. Either you're in the education space or you have kids, or you just want to know sort of like, hey, so, if we're hiring in our entry level positions, what are people teaching in schools? Again, I've kind of moved, and maybe I'm alone on this, but from we got to figure out how to teach students how to use AI. Students are figuring it out. It's not that we shouldn't teach them how to use it responsibly, but the teachers and how education and how students actually need to learn critical skills and all that kind of stuff without using AI to just sort of get over this. That's where teachers really need to be. And I feel very passionately about this. Teachers really need to be really, really well versed in it. And that's why I appreciate these initiatives. I don't care. Jaden, you and I were talking offline real quick. This is obviously benefiting Google and Meta and OpenAI. It's obviously aiding Microsoft. It's obviously getting young people to come in and actually start getting super committed to one or another. I know that Google last year, which is absolutely hilarious. I think it was during finals or something like that, or it was the timing was hilarious, right? It was like around May or something like that when Google and OpenAI started giving away these tools, right? All these chatbots and things like that, and saying, hey, like, use these, everybody can use it for free, right? Perfect timing, like right around finals era and stuff like that. But the idea that they're also getting people hooked on their model is huge and should not be overlooked. So yes, there's a cynical approach to this too, which I'm all for, as long as it's helping teachers. Jaeden, it's what you and I were talking about offline, this idea that this billions of dollars is also going into, let's face it, getting customers obsessed with Copilot,
Right, 100%. And I think there's a lot of ways that this can roll out. So I think there's plenty of room for the cynicism, right? Like $4 billion to help people in education. It's like, what does that mean? like putting up like a booth inside of like every high school of like Copilot's the greatest AI of them all. It's like, yeah, we're helping kids. Like, yeah, I mean, so I think that people kind of laugh at some of the things that Microsoft inevitably will do with that. However, I think the initiative's good. I agree with you. I think the learning comes from the teachers. Most importantly, I think, in America, we talk so often about, and probably around the world, but like teachers are like overworked and they're not paid enough. And there's like all these kind of things where, it can be difficult for teachers. And I think AI is one of the greatest solutions for helping speed up everything that they're working on. And so I think this is it's an amazing tool. Students, like you said, they have the incentives. They want to do well on their classes. They can obviously see how these AI tools are going to help them write better, faster, et cetera, et cetera. I guess people can disagree to what level they're allowed to use AI tools, et cetera, et cetera. But like, this is the future that we live in. And these people, like, they're very, very useful. One thing I did want to bring up on this, though, was some of the reasons that Microsoft is putting in this $4 billion. I guess people could also file this way in the cynical category. But Microsoft and a lot of these companies putting in, making a lot of these investments, I feel like a big part of this is to garner goodwill. Because right now we talk a lot about like Microsoft just laid off 9,000 people. I mean, let's not even calculate how much money they just quote unquote saved there. But there's a lot that could happen. And they're also talking about how like, last year in our call center alone, AI helped us save $500 million. So they're saving a lot of money with AI. They're potentially laying off a lot of people. People could complain that AI is taking jobs or replacing people. I think at the end of the day, we know that it's mostly just augmenting people and making people work better. But regardless, I think that this is kind of a big part of the conversation. And so doing initiatives where you work with like medical, for example, or with education, I think always is really good PR for Microsoft and all of these companies. Does that mean it's like useless? No. You know what? If they want to get their good PR and their goodwill in at the expense of like $8 billion to education, I'm happy for it. I'm not even going to, I'm not going to like be like, oh, they're just doing it for good reasons. Like, I don't really care why they're doing it. They're doing something good. And so I'll give them their flowers there. But yeah, I think there's a lot of, good that can be done through these kind of initiatives.
I agree. And I think the goodwill is actually a really interesting point. I hadn't really been thinking about that. But it's just funny also the evolution of goodwill when it comes to AI. So remember, goodwill back in 2023 was Sam Altman sitting in front of Congress saying, I don't earn any money from OpenAI, which, technically true, certainly at the time, but also guardrails. Remember, like this was all about like, hey, safety first, all that kind of stuff. And Europe, stuck on that path. And I think it's really, really harmed them. And that's all gone away, especially with the new administration. But I think it was leaning that way anyway, right? Which is we can't slow down. I mean, because it's a greater risk to our national security, if China beats us out on this. So the greater risk is not the existential risk is, will these things become sentient and start crushing us or something like that. It's more, if we're not ahead, that's going to be the greater risk. And I think you're absolutely right about Microsoft. I mean, Microsoft just laid off 9,000 people. More and more big CEOs are talking about the impact that this is going to have on labor. I know IBM was just talking about this, and a couple of weeks ago, Andy Jassy over at Amazon was talking about this. And obviously we had the Spotify, Duolingo, Fiverr CEOs coming out and saying this is going to be hugely disruptive to labor. And so how do you counter that, right? I mean, one way of countering it is like, okay, what does this look like for job creation? But I don't think anybody has that answer, Jaeden, right? I don't think anybody knows like what the future of work is going to look like. So they can't do that. It's not like a reskilling in the same way, oh, here come the assembly line. We're going to like reskill all these people to do this, because there's no clear path forward when it comes to AI. Nobody has any idea about what this is going to do. So what's the only other, maybe not only, but what's the other alternative here? It's, well, we're going to invest in education so everybody can kind of figure this out for themselves. And I do think that this is the new goodwill. It's we're going to train teachers, because everybody's touched by kids in some way. Either you're a parent, you were like, or you're in education. I like that approach, and I think it's a good approach. And I think you're right. I mean, like, we can be cynical and be like, oh, they're just doing this to get more customers. Yeah, man, like that's what a corporation, like, that's fiscal, fiduciary responsibility. But also, coming in the education space, I really do think if they're doing things to train teachers, I am all for it.
Okay, one thing I did want to bring up in this kind of concept is from a document that you mentioned. It's kind of this like White House pledge thing, the 60 companies or whatever. There's one quote in that document that I thought was interesting, because I think a lot of time when we say like Microsoft invests 40 billion in education, it's kind of like, what does that mean? Where does that money go? Or like this 60 companies pledge AI education. It's like, it's hard to like conceptualize. And so I wanted to bring up one particular example that they said. One of them is the U.S. Secretary of Agriculture. So they said, at USDA, we're working to give students the opportunity and mentorship they need to continue the legacy of American ingenuity. Our efforts involve leveraging specific training and grant opportunities for students and teachers that encourage the use and development of AI in agriculture. Anyways, they kind of go on and talk a little bit about, integrating AI into their curriculum in like agriculture. And so the thing that I do think is cool about this, and some of these initiatives from Microsoft and other players, these 60 organizations, like a lot of times I think it's like, oh, we're helping kids in like high school open up Chat GPT. And it's like, okay, they probably don't need that. They already know how. But I think what's more important is like, this is trickled down into a lot of the government agencies, into like the USDA and a lot of different industries that you don't think about AI, right? Like we think like, oh, AI can help a student write a report, but like actually AI can help like a farmer use AI to forecast better, crop yields, and it can help someone in manufacturing, and it can help someone that's implementing into robotics. I think there's so many industries, and if the government and all of the agencies are aligned with all of the the corporations and big companies, I think that AI will actually help advance the country. So like it should be quite a big net positive for everybody investing in this education. It doesn't just go to like high schools or universities or something. This is going into like the trades. This is going into agriculture, manufacturing, and a lot of other really exciting areas.
Yeah, I agree. I really do think that this is what we mean by, we don't know what upskilling looks like. It's not like, oh, well, now we'll teach everybody to operate this machinery or something like that, right? It's on the micro level. It's like, well, Amazon's sort of training their warehouse people to manage robots rather than lift boxes. But I think nobody knows, and that's why I like that quote that you were just talking about because it's everywhere. It's agriculture, it's manufacturing, it's everything. Listen, again, everybody's touched by education. Guys, keep up on these stories, okay? Like, because you are the ones that are going to be able to influence your teachers, your government officials, and things like that. I think that this is going to be, and we don't say this often, but this is really a sort of a responsibility of all of us to try to figure out like how our teachers are trained and all that kind of stuff. I know you all care very deeply about the next generation. I do too. Jaeden does too. We have kids. So if this is important to you, figure out what your schools are doing, figure out sort of like how this is going to impact you. But anyway, great conversation about this, Jaeden. I love talking with you about this especially. And we will see you all next time. Do not forget to leave a rating and review. It would be huge. We really appreciate you all, and we'll see you next time.